In this week's video, I've got to come clean, honestly. I've got to tell you guys something. Oh, it's really hard to say. I don't even really want to say it out loud.
Well, I went to a Coldplay concert by myself.
To be honest, I had a pretty great time. It was a
Great show, I gotta say. Very visual.
But in this video, I don't particularly want to tell you about that experience. Instead, I want to share my absolutely chaotic quest to get to Singapore in time for this concert. Do you ever do that thing where you double check your flight details and your ticket the night before you're due to catch a flight? Yeah. Well, I did that and discovered that Qantas had pretty much deleted my whole booking without telling me. Let's go over what to do in this situation, or at least what I did in this situation, because there's no way in the world that we'll let Qantas stop us from seeing Coldplay live. I guess for this to all make sense, I should quickly go over what the original plan was. It all starts on a Wednesday in a small surfing town called Mittagama on the southwest coast of Sri Lanka. My plan was to check out of the hotel fairly early, around 7 a.m. on the Thursday, take the 3-hour drive up to Colombo Airport, and then get on a Sri Lankan Airlines flight to Singapore. I booked this in business class using Qantas points. I was going to make a video about this whole experience, and then I'd land in Singapore at about 7 p.m. I'd have that Thursday night in Singapore, and then I was catching a very epic flight on Friday morning back home to Melbourne. That video is coming next week, so make sure you subscribe for that. And my original plan here did not include Coldplay at all. But while doing my standard morning bed rot doom scroll, I discovered that Coldplay was performing in Singapore that whole week. I think they had 4 shows. And that Thursday night, they just happened to have a show. Now, I have a friend that's super into Coldplay. They bought tickets to every single Melbourne concert. And I just thought it would be great if I was able to see Coldplay before them. Now look, I'm not just an arsehole friend here. Coldplay concerts are renowned for being incredible spectacles. And well,
I like some of the Coldplay songs.
after spending way too much money on a resale ticket, my perfect plan was in place. I'd get a nice concert and then I'd be flying home. What possibly could go wrong? On Wednesday afternoon, I opened up my Qantas app, and for some strange reason, the flight to Singapore had just completely disappeared. I checked on the Qantas website, it wasn't there either. I finally go onto the Sri Lankan Airlines website, I type in my booking reference, and I get this error. This booking no longer exists. Great. Now what? I had about 18 hours before this flight. I fire up Skype, because of course my phone's not working in Sri Lanka. And after waiting around, I finally get through to a customer service agent, and it basically comes about that the whole booking had been deleted. The story as to why, I guess I'll dive into it a little bit. I booked this as a multi-city booking. I booked 2 flights sort of on this ticket. The first flight was from Hong Kong to Delhi, and then the second flight was from Colombo to Singapore. And you might be thinking, why would you do that? That's a strange booking to make. There's a couple of reasons. Obviously, I did want to take the 2 flights. And secondly, you can't book Sri Lankan Airlines flights out of Colombo to anywhere. Qantas doesn't have a booking office, or I think the ability to take Sri Lankan currency. And so you can't originate any trips out of Colombo. You can get around this by booking them as a multi-city booking, or I think you can call up the call center and they can do it over the phone. Of course, I did just want to take these 2 flights, so I booked it as a multi-city booking. A few weeks after booking this though, I realized that I probably didn't actually want to go via India on my trip.
It's a long way to Delhi.
I didn't want to go get the visa just to spend 2 days in Delhi, and I thought if I was going to go to India, I want to do it properly. So I call up Qantas and I request to cancel that first leg. And the agent's like, yep, no worries at all. She cancels the first leg, all good. Turns out, she actually canceled both legs.
Home run!
When I was calling up the day before the flight, the guy at Qantas basically told me that because there was no more reward seats available, he wouldn't be able to fix it straight away. And in order to fix this, he would have to send it over to the ticketing team. There was a chance that they might be able to rebook me, but that it would take 12 to 24 hours to resolve. Problem was, my flight was in 18 hours. Not exactly what you want to hear. I realized at this point that my business class dreams are probably over, and that I should probably just be figuring out how to get to Singapore in time for not only the Coldplay concert that I just spent way too much money on, but also for my flight home on the Friday. Let me run you through how I find a flight in these sort of situations. First, I just look for whatever tickets are available to Singapore. Problem here was that all the economy tickets were coming up north of $1,000.
$1,137.11.
I didn't want to spend $1,000 just to get to Singapore.
If you're a broke boy, just say so.
And so I started to look at flights that would get me close to Singapore. Flights to Bangkok, Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur. After evaluating all the options, I settle on Kuala Lumpur. There's a flight still available. It's less than $350 on Sri Lankan Airlines, leaving from Colombo that night at 12:40 a.m. And it would get me into Kuala Lumpur just before 7 a.m. I figured this would give me 12-ish hours to get to Singapore. I could figure it out in the morning. It might be a bus, it might be a plane, but I could get there. Problem here was, I couldn't buy a ticket on this flight. I did just say that they're available for less than $350, but I couldn't buy one through the Sri Lankan Airlines website. For some reason, they don't let you buy tickets within 6 hours of departure. Amazing. At this point, it's 7 p.m. I'm still 3 hours away from the airport. Great. I call up Sri Lankan Airlines, again, on Skype, and I'm told that they can't even sell me a ticket over the phone. It's the same policy. What? Okay. So I asked the guy if there's any chance that I could buy a ticket at the airport. He straight up tells me on the phone, maybe. Pretty much he didn't know. At this point, I figured my best bet was to just get to the airport as quickly as possible. As I said, it's 7 p.m. I'm not getting to the airport before 10. So I pack up all of my belongings, check out of the hotel, and book an Uber. This is where things got even more fun. I gotta go. I did feel a little bit bad for the Uber driver. I don't think either of us were expecting to make the trip up to Colombo that night. He wanted to do the job but had to call his wife first. Once that was all clear, next up was fuel. He had to fill up before the big trip. After what seemed like an eternity, we finally found a petrol station that was open. I was itching to get moving at this point, so once we were all fueled up, I'm like, let's go, take the tollway, my man. I'm willing to pay whatever it takes to get us there as quickly as possible. He gave me the thumbs up and away we went. So, I got quite the surprise when 20 minutes later we pull into a second petrol station. What's happening? Is there something wrong with the car? No. It turns out that he had no cash, and at the last petrol station he was only able to put in a quarter of a tank worth of fuel. I'm so confused and stressed at this point that I just give him all my cash and we actually fill up this time. So surely, after all this, we can finally get on the expressway and get to Colombo. No. Of course, it's not that simple. Right before we turn onto the express tollway, he pulls over again and jumps out of the car. I'm thinking, is he taking a quick leak? What's going on?
So you're just checking the wheels?
Yeah.
Okay. Before the highway?
Yeah.
Okay.
To be fair, after all of that, we were on our way. There was no more stops. We went straight to the airport. I do want to quickly say though, in those comments that I got last week stating that actually it's only 2 hours from Colombo to Miragama on the Southern Expressway. And yes, this is true when you don't have to fill up petrol twice and then kick the tires and a bunch of messing around. Generally, unless I'm driving the car, I don't really trust Google Maps times.
Slide left, then you will arrive at your destination.
We finally get to the airport at 10:50 p.m. Again, I was trying to catch a 12:40 a.m. flight, so I had a little under 2 hours until departure.
It would have helped if I knew where the ticketing counter was. She's like, oh, you don't have time, check-in's closed, and then she called someone. I was like, well, you can. You don't have much time though, so here we are. It cost me $300, but we've got a ticket. I've got 16 minutes to check in. Okay, somehow the self check-in worked. So now we're doing a bag drop. For Tokyo. So I don't know how that worked. I have 2 minutes left. The most stressful flight of my life. That's like pretty much ideally the plane I would have been on. Singapore. Anyway, she just told me that it's -11 in economy. As in 11 people won't board. I don't want that to be me. I'm going. Oh. Qantas.
Finally, let's go over the flight. Look at me go, completely misleading you in this whole video. I actually just wanted to do a Sri Lankan Airlines economy class review. Don't worry, I won't bore you with it, but let me just run you through some of the highlights. Obviously, the actual time of the flight is a highlight. It leaves at 12:40 a.m., lands at 7 a.m., and we're in the air for under 4 hours. These flights are just special. Next up, I was in a middle seat. Love these. Amazing. And lastly, we had the guy next to me who was just a little bit too into telling me about his sex life. Perfect. Engaging conversation. What more can you want on a flight that you're trying to sleep on?
These are a few of my favorite things.
I do have to give credit where credit is due here. Sri Lankan Airlines did do a pretty good meal service considering the timing of this flight and everything. It was surprisingly tasty and I was pretty impressed with the metal cutlery. Pretty much as soon as we landed, I was checking out every available option to get to Singapore. The bus was definitely high on the list. It was cheap, but I would have to get to downtown Kuala Lumpur, and it can take quite a long time. I think the Malaysia-Singapore border can be a bit of a mess, so I decided to look at flights as well. All of the AirAsia and Jetstar options were actually quite expensive. I guess because I was looking at them on the day. I'm going by memory here, but I want to say that once I included a bag, I was looking at north of $150 for this sort of flight. I didn't really want to pay that after everything else that I just spent the previous day.
If you're a broke boy, just say so.
I guess Qantas sort of came to the rescue here. I quickly checked to see if there was any reward flights, and I was somehow able to book a Malaysia Airlines flight at 11:45 to Singapore for 10,000 points and around $35 in fees. I particularly liked this option for a specific reason that we'll get to in a second.
Hopefully I can check in. It's pretty early. Honestly, Kuala Lumpur Airport's pretty good. Like, Singapore gets all the praise, but I like this airport. Alright, my flight, it's 7:44 now. My flight to Singapore is at 11:50. So we're all good. We're all good in terms of Singapore. Is that a clean t-shirt? How do you test for clean clothes? Sniff test, right? That's universal. It's gotta be, right? I am so tired. Let's go see if I can check in like 4 hours early for a flight. Surely they'll be cool with that, right? Alright. Easy peasy. An old friend. You remember that fun? I mean, that's not the plane, but you remember that one? Good times. Anyway, let's go to this Malaysian Golden Lounge. I think I can get in. I've got status now, so we should be eating good. Kind of want to nap. I have a nap room, so let's go. I think they're playing animal sounds over the speakers. Alright, so it's time to nap. I got like 1 hour, I reckon. Alright, that was a very pleasant time. Had a nap in the nap room. Ate some food, had some breakfast. Now we actually got to go catch the bus back to the main terminal in order to catch this flight, so let's do that. I've got like 20 minutes before boarding. The bit where you really want to see your bag get on there. I haven't seen it yet.
Kami kini menjemput penumpang kumpulan 4.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, we're going to do the train today. Train to the city. Never done it before. Because it always takes too long. It literally takes an hour plus. Where a grab takes like 20 minutes. But I can't check into my hotel until 3 and it's 1:40 now, so might as well. Why does this exist?
After all of that, I got to my hotel, I slept for a couple more hours, and then it was time to hit this concert. To say it was just raining that night would be a bit of an understatement. It was an absolute downpour.
Some guy just donated me his umbrella. I've never been more thankful, but also holy.
Now, for obvious copyright reasons, I won't go showing you full clips from this concert. Instead, let's enjoy some Coldplay adjacent royalty-free music.
Yeah, boy.
I do have to say that it was an absolute spectacle though. I'm not sure if I would recommend catching a red-eye flight to another country to see them, but if they're in your city, I'd highly recommend going to a Coldplay concert. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. I learned at least that if you ever modify a Qantas booking, double check it, triple check it. Just make sure that it exists. I guess we got there in the end though. If you haven't already, check out flightformula.com. I've got some tools there for using and earning Qantas points. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.